weeks before Inauguration Day, together with Reverend Sammy Rodriguez, who also was one of the 6 people who gave prayers at the inauguration, but also gave a prayer at the Obama inauguration. So he's a very powerful Latino. We co-authored the piece together with Rabbi Adlerstein, and which I still hope someday will happen, calling for the creation of a National Commission of Reconciliation. I think we have to, Americans, we have to go back to Aleph Bet, which is we have to now either reinvent or rediscover what's called in the old country some Menschlichkeit, and hold up also best practices. You know, the good things that happen in Yerushalayim or in Toronto or in Philadelphia never make the media. There are important things that Democrats and Republicans in daily life are involved with, and we suggested even then that the Yoshev Rosh for this commission should be Vice President Pence. He has experience running a state. I don't think he has the twitch. And I think we see each day that goes on that we need to find ways to better communicate with each other. Let me end just with one story. It's an ongoing issue that's actually not taking place in the U.S., but I think does tie into the other point that we need to do. Let me say what the point is first. We have, hopefully, coming before both houses of Congress in the coming weeks, a law that the United States Congress should adopt the State Department's definition of anti-Semitism. Believe it or not, South Carolina, the state, just adopted it on Thursday. And say, well, what do you need a definition for? And the answer is the other fault line for American Jewry, the campus. Jewish kids on campuses have been bullied, intimidated, and sometimes worse. I'm not sure, Uri, even with your credentials, that if you came to Berkeley, you wouldn't be booed and not have a chance to even give your speech. So what we need to do in the United States is give the university administrators and all the bureaucrats who deal with this kind of situation in the Department of Education a definition, so when the line is crossed from legitimate criticism of Israeli policies, of which we can go on for hours, and something that goes into demonization of Israel, Zionism, Jews, and their supporters. This is something that needs to take place. The Wiesenthal Center and other Jewish groups are involved. We hope it'll pass. Now, why have we come to this point, and what are the implications beyond our borders, is the amazingly disturbing decision by a local court in Germany last year, confirmed already by the next court up, in which a number of Islamists living in Germany threw Molotov cocktail at a Beit Knesset, at a synagogue, and the court found them not guilty of anti-Semitism. They said, well, of course, it's a criminal act, but it's a political act. And the political act is they don't like Israel, and so to the narrow definition of some of the jurists in Germany, who don't exactly have a stellar history going back even to the 1930s. And if Mr. Wiesenthal was here today, he can fill you in about what they didn't do in the 50s, 60s, and 70s either. But the idea of allowing the split of saying that it's okay, you can attack a Beit Knesset if you're angry about Israeli policies, you can attack a synagogue in Germany or anywhere else, that opens wide, I would say, the doors to Gehinnom, to hell, and not just, by the way, for Jews. If you're ready to start redefining hate crimes and religious hatred as a political issue, as part of people blowing off people who are angry, whatever, then you can just fill in, the target of choice. So we do have, at the minimum, a legal goal here to get something passed. I think for inside the Jewish community, We need to redefine and reinvigorate our collective commitment to fight anti-Semitism. And also, it's in the age of this unprecedented presidency, and in an era when the leading light of the women's movement in the United States is a BDS supporter and hates Israel, we have plenty of challenges on the left as well. And the third element is that whichever part of the political spectrum people find themselves, Jewish people find themselves, we must reach out to our neighbors, means clergy in the neighborhood. Maybe you never bothered to even look to see what kind of church there is. And also our local politicians, to explain to them what it is that we have to put up with on a daily basis and why it is that they should care. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Questions? Yes, please.
You talked about the politicization of the anti-Semitic issue in the United States. I was struck this morning, you probably saw it also on the front page of the Jerusalem Post, is an article dealing with parents who are pulling their children out of JCC schools because they're afraid of the threats. And in that article, they say that the anti-Semites have become emboldened by the Trump administration. Now, is that the perception in the United States now, that today one is safer being an anti-Semite than when Barack Obama was president?
Well, you raised a couple of issues. Why don't we focus on the most important issue as far as I'm concerned? Jewish parents were pulling their kids out of a JCC. It is, in that sense, it's a huge win for the evildoers, wherever they're coming from. And that means also that Jewish leaders have to do a better job to reassure these parents that they, it's okay to be Jewish in America. Just think about the fear factor and how well it's worked. In Israel, realities here in the last 68, almost 9 years, you're living on a whole different plane. In America, I have to say, in many ways, we've been spoiled, but the JCC movement especially is extremely important because in some ways, like Chabad, they're the people who are there to, in many ways, welcome back young couples who are on the board, maybe not really sure how deep their commitment is, but want their kids to know about Purim and Hanukkah and Pesach. Wonderful, wonderful institutions in communities large and small across the United States. So it is important for us to reassure them. I saw that Senator Hildebrand from New York wants $50 million to be put for better security. I'd be the last person in the world to say we shouldn't spend more money on security. But the ultimate security is finding out who's doing this and making sure there are consequences for that behavior. Now, when you say, what do you mean consequences? It's France. We have here some French Jews. So the battle to get French police and intelligence to finally look seriously at the issue of anti-Semitism took many, many, many years. And they're not doing a bad job now. You know what the problem is? There are no judges to put those horrible people behind bars. You say, Nebuch, the guy came from Africa, or he came from the Maghreb, and etc. And the judicial system in France has not done its job. As a result, if you're a member of the Jewish community and you have to say to yourself, do I have a future in this country? This is one of the main issues that French Jews have been struggling with. So now, to the question about, do we tie it to the current administration? What about the last administration? I had a long talk with Mark Fisher, who's the editor, senior editor at the Washington Post last week, exactly about this issue. I'm not sure the dots are there to connect to the Trump administration, meaning that in my opinion, the extremists who've been around every 4 years, they're hawking, David Duke's been hawking for 20 years. The David Dukes of America today are being heard, in my opinion, not so much because they have more supporters, but because they have figured out the system, the way ISIS has figured out the social media system, as they're losing on the battlefield, they're getting more recruits because they have a brilliant marketing campaign. And I think that some of the extremists have taken note of that and have planted their flag firmly, First Amendment rights in the United States, lazy companies are not doing enough, in order to have that kind of echo chamber and be present there. Now the question is, did candidate Trump do enough? You can argue. Did he do it early enough? Probably not. Did he say the right things? Eventually he did. Now that he's president, I see it in a whole different context. We have parents pulling their kids out. I'm not ready to wag my finger and say to the president, who's got Jewish grandchildren, this is your fault. My interaction with this administration early on, which is not so simple because they don't have a lot of their pieces in place yet, is you're president of the United States. When you gave that first speech right after you won, I'm president for everyone, then we need leadership from your administration. That means from U.S. Attorney, it means from the intelligence services, it means from the Justice Department, and it means also communal and moral leadership from the top. And if that means the vice president and the secretary, ma tova manayim, but we've begun to hear the right words. We have to make sure that the right pieces are put into place. And in terms of the previous administration, yeah, there were a lot of people hoping to hear a lot about what was going on the BDS movement, for example. We didn't hear very much from the left, but I'm very much a pragmatist. I have to deal in 2017. These are the cards that we have, the administration that we have, and our job is to keep Jews safe.
Very good. Yes, please.
Could you tell us what are the specific prohibitions by federal law against hate in terms of words, actions, and symbols? Some time ago I saw a video, I think it was a Wisconsin-based group, with very explicit expressions, Nazi expressions, actions, calls for action. I was absolutely shocked, and I was wondering, is this permitted? Is this under the law?
Good question.
Very good question. So let me, before I get to the specific example, which does involve American Nazis, they are Nazis, is to come back again to why do we want a law passed to define anti-Semitism if hate is not illegal in America? So the answer is, it's a very specific point, but an important point. The United States Department of Education has in its mandate to make sure that if this is obviously because of what happened in the 50s and 60s, that if individuals from a minority or any group are targeted, gays for example, African Americans, Latinos, immigrants, if they're targeted on campus, intimidated, etc., the U.S. Department of Education has a lot of clout to actually make the university take specific steps to keep their students safe and take action against students or anyone else who are involved in that kind of activity, which means that while the act may not be, the words may not be illegal, if you contribute to an environment that makes it impossible when there are threats, there are things that can be done on campuses that in the, let's call it the real world, would not be applicable. So that's a practical thing. Almost every time we're dealing with an administration across the country, University of Tennessee, Columbia, UCLA, they all say, well, we're just not really sure where the line is. So since the State Department has adopted a line, and now you have 31 European countries, a similar definition, that would be, in fact, very helpful. Now, here's the classic argument between people who grew up in Europe and Americans. In Europe, there are anti-hate laws, and you can put people in jail for what they say, not even always necessarily what they do. And by the way, it's true also in Canada. The United States does not have such laws. So that brings us to our focus at the Wiesenthal Center. So what do you do when you see these guys in Wisconsin? There's YouTube, and there's Facebook, and there's Twitter, and Telegram, and VK.com out of Russia. What do you do? So at the end of this month, we'll be releasing our annual report. I have a copy of a CD of a couple of from last year. And what we do
It is
is...
also on your website. no?
Yes, it's now going to be also on our website at wiesenthal.com. But the most important thing that we've contributed to this current debate, and first of all, when I walk into Facebook headquarters, every time you go back, there's another campus. They've added not another building, it's always another campus, like a moluchan, it's like a kingdom, and bigger. Also, whenever I walk in, I feel much older than my 66 years. I bring the bell curve way up. You're dealing mostly with kids. But our focus has always been with the companies, and continues. We put out an annual report card. We actually give them grades. So 2 years ago, we were meeting in San Francisco at Twitter headquarters with 8 people, 6 of them lawyers. And I didn't know for sure if they were following it. When somebody said, Rabbi, we noticed you gave us an F last year. Are you thinking of changing the grade? I said, yes. If I can think of something lower than an F, I would give it to Twitter. Now, Twitter is important. Twitter has changed in some ways. In October of 2015, at a congressional hearing, there was a report put out by a government agency that in October of 2015, ISIS released in 1 month, no, not in 1 month, 1 day, 200,000 tweets, one group. So Twitter, we were begging with them for years, you need to help degrade the marketing capabilities of these groups. Otherwise, what has happened has happened. So they have moved now finally in a substantial way against the ISIS of the world, but have been very slow on the hashtags that use the N-word, that are anti-Semitic, et cetera, et cetera. We give 2 grades now, terrorism and hate. It means that more important than UN, UNESCO, the European Union, the Parliament, Parlatino in South America, forget about them. The most important ally we need to demand to take action is Silicon Valley Plus. It's there because they set their own rules. And in the early years, I've been at this 20 years, in the early years I used to get lectures, except from Facebook, freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. And then the following week they go to China. They want to make a poor dollar with the Chinese. China has its own rules about what can and can't be said, and they just, where do I sign on the dotted line? So what we try to do is take it away from speech and take it to that when you push those 2 words, I agree, when you download something, how many people here have ever read the contract underneath it? I have Nebuch, a guy on my staff, we don't pay enough. He reads them. I have never met any civilian. But when you push that button, that's a contract. If it's a contract that, as Facebook, you have transparent rules you put in place. You have some people on your staff who are experts that technologically can create some tripwires. You spend some money on them. You don't wait for governments to tell you what to do, because if we wait till then, we're finished. So the long and short is, in Europe, they'll arrest those guys. In the United States, they're free to act, and we need to find the people who are who control Silicon Valley to do more to degrade their capabilities.
Walter.
A couple of just short points and a question. It was Bannon's wife who accused him of anti-Semitism. And then you said every day is Purim. How is that possible when the bad guys are still around?
In case, before you go further, since it's Purim already in Tel Aviv, if you're in the 3rd chapter of the Megillah, looks like the bad guys are winning. So it's a long story, the Purim story.
Now, you covered a great deal of ground, and there could be questions to every one of
Let's have one.
you mentioned.
One
I
question.
just have
One good
one of which you haven't covered. There, last month, I think it was a debate at the Oxford Union, and the motion was something like, this House believes that Holocaust denial should be should not be criminalized. There was an excellent speaker who spoke against the motion, of course, and interestingly, Deborah Lipstadt spoke for the motion. What's your view on this?
First of all, I have a lot of respect for Deborah Lipstadt. I only sat one day in the courtroom in London. I think if I was there 2 days, I either would have had a heart attack or I would have attacked David Irving. So kol hakavod to her and to the judge who actually knew exactly what he was doing. Look, this
It's
is...
a movie now.
Yes,
so-
and then that makes it official. Look, this is the fault line between Americans and especially Europe, between baseball and cricket. It's very difficult to explain to the other side. American tradition is to allow maximum speech and to defeat the falsehoods in the marketplace of ideas, which in the pre-internet world was a lot simpler. Now you can have attacks on you and the people doing the attacking are not going to be held accountable in any way. Our institutional approach is the following. We deal, meaning the Simon Wiesenthal Center, it depends on the democracy that we're dealing with. If there's a law in Germany especially, but elsewhere, that this is criminalized, we're not going to tell them decriminalize it. There's a reason why democracy, Canada has a similar approach to speech, but they do draw a red line that Americans do not. In terms of, again, the internet, which is where most of this is now taking place, we lobby very hard to Facebook, who are generally the best responsive. They allow Holocaust denial. Where they pulled it off is when we can show them that it's used by the Iranian government and their institutions as institutional propaganda. But you still see, when you're dealing with Americans, especially young ones, that there's like this an instinct to sort of allow the speech and allow the response to take place. By the way, Facebook also allows, excuse the word, there's a curse, F blank, every religion down the line, every one. When we say to them, what are you doing? Look what's going on around the world today, where people are being killed because of their religion. They say, no, there's nothing specific that threatens a particular individual or even a small group, so we're going to allow it because of speech. We bring our American bias to the table, but because we had a great teacher in Simon Wiesenthal, who was a European gentleman, so we try to deal with it in that way, which is, doesn't make it any easier. I think what Americans would and continue to argue is, you cannot legislate hate out of existence. Better to hear it put on the table, where you can come back at them and debunk it. The problem with the internet, if Yad Vashem tomorrow spent $50 million on a global campaign, ads, making its website even better, streaming video, etc., there's still no guarantee that the people who want to believe there was no Shoah and would complete the job if they had the opportunity, they may not even see it. That's another reality of the 21st century that we never could have anticipated.
Yes, please.
You mentioned all of this before about Silicon Valley. What's your leverage there with them to get them to make changes? And also, you keep saying, like in Canada and Europe, they have these hate laws, but you're not pressing for government hate laws in America, when in fact it's a democracy in Canada,
Right.
it's a democracy in Europe. One more thing.
Hold on, I'll take the third one also, because I didn't,
This is the third
I
one.
can't remember the first, but go ahead. I'm an old man already.
The third one is just about
Abrahamanis.
Holocaust International Memorial Day. Why wasn't there an outrage about that statement coming with no mention of the Jews in it?
Okay, so I'm probably going to have to ask you to help me with all three. Maybe the second one was the most important. Why aren't there, if America is a democracy, why aren't there efforts on the local level, state and federal, to make hate illegal? The answer is the First Amendment to the Constitution, change the Constitution. In other words, if we want to make ourselves feel good, raise a lot of money and say, we're going to go to Congress and we're going to make AIPAC, there's nowhere to go. What you can do is try wherever it's possible, when you can tie the rhetoric to an action, especially on campuses. And when there are different rules, there are robust rules that apply on campuses for everyone else so far except Jews, then we're trying to move aggressively where we can. But the legislative answer to our problems overall in the United States does not exist. Number two, yeah, we were outraged about International Holocaust Memorial Day. It's not the first time. We saw, I remember 2 years ago, a series of beautifully written essays about Anne Frank by kids in Ireland. The word Jew never appeared anywhere. So it is a concern. It always is a concern from the first time that the issue was raised. I don't think there's any excuse for it, other than to say one thing about this administration and our efforts to interact with it. I've been away now from the States almost 4 weeks, so I hope it's better, because I'm not sure. So for example, a colleague of mine was in the State Department 2 days after almost everybody resigned or retired. The building was basically empty. The building was empty. The Secretary of State had not yet been confirmed, and so there.
You're here, so...
Right, and of course, there's a limit